Good evening and welcome to Etihad Cargo Connections. I'm your host, Rowan Anderson, and I'm joined tonight by trainer Roger Varian. How are we tonight, Roger?
Yeah, we're very good. Thanks, Rowan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for joining us. We'll just start from the beginning. Where were you born and where did you grow up?
I was born in a town in the UK called Luton.
Yeah.
And I grew up, spent my childhood years in between the counties of Oxfordshire and Buckinghamshire.
Okay.
So sort of southwest of London, I guess.
Yeah. And how did you first get involved in horses and horse racing?
I was a horse racing fan as a kid growing up. I got taken to the local point-to-point, which is the amateur jumps racing circuit. And I loved going just as a racing fan, like getting close to the action. And I had a childhood dream of being a jockey. So I pursued it through my teenage years. And I originally set out to ride as opposed to train. But, that ambition to be a rider was really what got me into the industry in the first place.
And well, the next question is around that, your career as a jockey and your ambition around being a jockey. You moved to the US as a teenager to begin work in Hollywood Park as a jockey. And as you just said, your main ambition was never to become a trainer, it was always around in the saddle?
Well, I suppose, of course, my early ambitions were to be a jockey.
Yeah.
As a kid growing up, that's what I wanted to be. But I suppose even when you're young, you can't be a jockey forever. So I wouldn't say that training never appealed to me. But for sure, my first ambition was to be a jockey, and actually moved to California as a teenager at the age of 15 with my family. So actually, I finished school out there first before I got to ride at Hollywood Park. Hollywood Park was, I suppose, my first destination after leaving school.
Yeah.
And then moved back to the UK when I was age 17. So I'm not sure I'd have gone to America, to Hollywood Park, just in the pursuit of being a rider, because my main ambition back then was to be a steeplechase jockey in the UK. But I was a bit young. My family moved to America, so I went with them. I finished school, had a great experience at Hollywood Park as a track work rider for about 6 months before coming back to the UK. And some of those international experiences when you're younger, of course, stand you in good stead when you get a bit older as well.
And you mentioned the steeplechase side of things, and you got into national hunt work and riding for Josh Guilford mainly, and then you returned to the States. The States, I read a quote, or you said the reason for the return to the States was you thought your career in being a jockey needed that push forward. But you said that you wouldn't have moved to the States originally because you wanted to be a steeplechase rider. How far did that return to the States propel you in your career before, the injury and having to end your career as a jockey?
Well, when I went back to the States, I went back to the East Coast and joined the stable of Jack Fisher. And whilst the steeplechase industry in America is not as prestigious or as well known as it is here in the UK, there is still a steeplechase circuit in America. And if you can do well on that circuit, then you can certainly carve out a career. So I went out there, I think in the spring of maybe 2001, maybe a year earlier, I can't remember, but it was when we had the foot and mouth in the UK, so there was very little racing going on here. And truth be told, I wasn't really cutting the ice as a rider over here. I think I'd managed 5 winners my first proper season and 2 the following season. And so it was an opportunity to go and I guess restart in the States. But I was glad I went, had a great time, and met some good connections. And of course, when you're at that age and you're living your life, you can't really see how fate is unfolding or how the dots are going to align. But when you look back, you can start to believe in fate and in the path that you took and the reasons that you took that path. And yes, I went to America and I started out okay out there. But then I had quite a serious fall and some serious injuries to my wrist and my back, which stopped me riding for a while. But it did bring me back to the UK, and that was a summer that I came to Newmarket full time and switched codes, I suppose, from steeplechase racing to flat racing, and also had a rethink on my longer term ambitions. I was age 21 at the time, and I was always very ambitious. And the dream of being a jockey wasn't really unfolding, not to the degree of success that I would have liked it. And I was fortunate, I think, to be at that crossroads at a young age, and actually make a conscious decision. I was being realistic about my chances of ever being a top rider. I was probably not good enough, and I was realistic about that. And I switched my attention to wanting to become a trainer at a young age, and that helped me, I guess, get into the stable of Michael Jarvis's when I was young. I was only 21, and I became his assistant trainer, and I had 10 very good years with Michael before, of course, setting out on my own career as a trainer. So everything happens for a reason, and when you look back at things, you can see how things unfolded. When you're in the present time as a youngster, you're never quite sure whether you're doing the right thing or the wrong thing. But as it transpired, it all worked out well for me.
And as you said, 10 years in Newmarket with Michael Jarvis, horses that included the likes of Rugby. You took the yard over when Jarvis retired. What did that time and that experience with Michael mean to your career and yourself? Also, what was that opportunity? As you said, when you're younger, you don't see the bigger picture, so to speak. But what did that opportunity, when you did, step up to take over from Michael at Crumlin House, what did that opportunity mean to yourself and your career?
Well, I think by the time I was taking over, I was very aware of the opportunity that was in front of me. I think the 10 years that I'd spent with Michael was invaluable in terms of giving me a foundation and the experience, and to be associated with someone with such a big reputation in the industry, globally, as Michael Jarvis had. He was extremely well respected. He was extremely successful. He had a good bank of clients, and I was very involved in the stable for that 10 years. So really, it was. I think it's a process that you can't rush. To become a trainer, I think that when you do start training, you're thrown with so much challenges, I suppose. Not just from a equine perspective, but your people skills will be tested, and your equine skills will be tested. And I don't think it's something that you can fast track, that learning curve, that learning experience. So I think the 10 years I had with Michael were absolutely vital to being where I am now. I don't think if I could go back and cut that time in half, I definitely wouldn't do that. I think I probably needed that 10 years to be in a position where I was, ready from a personal point of view to start training, but also from a professional point of view and a point of view of the knowledge that I'd gained under Michael. So, that was really invaluable. He was a wonderful man to work for. He was one of the true gentlemen of his era. Very well respected, as I said before, from a global perspective within the industry. And taking over from him really gave me a great springboard to which to launch my own career.
Yeah, and we'll mention some horses that you've had the pleasure to train in your career. We'll start with Nahrain. Won the Prix de l'Opera and then went on to win the Flower Bowl Invitational in 2012. Tell us a little bit about that filly and what she meant to your career.
Yeah, she was a very special filly, very talented. And of course, she gave me a Group 1 winner in the first year that I trained, which is, as we come to learn, Group 1 winners are hard to come by at any point in your career. But to I suppose, to bag one in our first year training helped elevate the status of the stable and my name. So, she'll always be dear to me. She was a very talented filly. She was unraced as a 2-year-old, and my first season training, she was a 3-year-old, and she won all 5 of her starts. I guess going up through the ranks, and to win a race as prestigious as the Prix de l'Opera, Longchamp on Arc de Triomphe Day, was a huge, was a huge deal for me at the time, and I'm sure gave the stable, as I say, a bit of a elevation, at a crucial time in your career. I think the first few years that any trainer starts to train, I think it's very important to hit the ground running, not only with winners, but with some quality in the stable. And as I say, to have a Group 1 in the first year I trained was invaluable, really.
Yeah, and other names, as you said, quality in the stable, Beyond Desire, Shimmering Surf. Who have been some other great horses you've had the opportunity to train through your career?
Yeah, I've been lucky. We've had good quality in the stable every year, really. Hard to mention them all, but I think we're at a stage now where we've trained 21 Group 1 winners. Two classic winners there. Kingston Hill was our first classic winner, winning the St. Leger, I think, in 2014 or 2015, which is very special to train a horse like Postpone to win on the international stage, winning a Shima Classic in Dubai, and then cementing that the following year, winning a Coronation Cup at Epsom and a Jabmonte International. These are some of the biggest races, on the global circuit at the highest level. So, obviously they gave us great pleasure. But I think Group 1 winners with homebred fillies are very special. And yes, going back to the likes of Nahrain and of course Nezwa, also owned by Sheikh Ahmed Al Maktoum. She won a Pretty Polly Stakes. Tiona was one of our early Group 1 winners, winning a Pretty Polly Stakes, and her daughter, forgive me, Ambivalent, won a Pretty Polly Stakes, and her daughter Tiona won the Prix Vermeil. So it's nice to repeat feats with certain lines of a family. Makes you realize you've been training a little time when you start training the daughters and the granddaughters of some of the early fillies that we trained, in my career. So yeah, we can't mention them all, but we'd love to, because they're very special moments. Group 1s are hard to come by. A horse like Bellardo winning such a prestigious 2-year-old race like the Dewhurst Stakes is very special, and strong as a 4-year-old won the Lockinge Stakes. So we've been lucky to win some of the biggest races in Europe. Looking back to last year, Eldarov winning the St. Leger, giving us our second classic, and horse like Bayside Boy winning the QE2 Stakes at Ascot on Champions Day. These are all races which are highlights of our European pattern, and hopefully we can continue to make our mark in these kind of races going forwards.
And as you said, you said in your first year getting that first Group 1, and how hard and how much work, and I can't even imagine how much work and commitment goes into your job to get one Group 1, let alone, as you said, 21 Group 1s that include the 2 St. Leger Classics. It's been a career that, to say it's been successful, is an understatement. In the UAE, you mentioned the Dubai Shima Classic with Postpone in 2016. How long have you been taking horses to the UAE and Middle East? And what are your thoughts on the profile of racing in terms of prize money, prestige, just how far they've developed over the years in the region of the Middle East?
Well, to start with, I mean, we've not every year, but fairly consistently taken horses to the Middle East, to Dubai, to Meydan, to race since I very first started. In fact, when I took over the stable of Michael Jarvis, my first public runner in my name was a horse called Lahib, who was owned by Sheikh Hamdan Al Maktoum of Shadwell. And he finished 4th in the Shima Classic, and he was the first runner I had, even before I had a runner in Britain. So you could say I've had runners in Dubai, right back to one of them being my very first runner.
Yeah.
So we've always liked to support their program, but that's, I suppose, a simple thing to say because it's such a great program at this time of the year. And if you have a horse good enough, it's if you can get a horse to be competitive on Dubai World Cup evening in any of their races, then that's the stage we like to compete on. It's great test of a thoroughbred. It's a great test against your international peers. It's an international race meeting that bring the best horses from the Middle East, of course, but also from Europe, from North America, from Australia, and from Japan. So it's really a international spectacle. And, we've tasted success on that stage. Of course, we've postponed in the Shima Classic, and we've gone close. I think we were third in that race, the Shima Classic, with Ambivalent, and fourth in that race, as I say, with Lahib. And postponed, of course, was third in that race the year after he won it. So if you can be competitive on Dubai World Cup night in any of their premier races, then that's something we'll aim to be repeating if we possibly can in the this year and in years to come.
And we'll just talk about the 4 that you have nominated for this campaign in Dubai. We'll start with Tinker Toy. He's nominated for the Group 3 1375 turf sprint in Saudi and Riyadh next week. A 6-year-old by Warfront with a listed win in Wolverhampton. Tell us a little bit about him and what his program looks like over the next few months.
Yeah, he's a really lovely horse. He's getting better as he gets older. A very special horse to us. He's out of the mare Cursory Glance, who we trained to win the Moyglare Stud Stakes as a 2-year-old. She was champion juvenile filly that year. He's a first foal of Cursory Glance, so it's nice to get him up to a high level. It's worth noting, though, he won't be going to Saudi this week for the race that you mentioned.
Yeah.
He'll be staying at home, and we'll be trying to repeat his win in the listed race at Wolverhampton early in March.
Excellent. And he's looking in form and ready to go to repeat that. He's
in great shape. Yeah. No, we're very happy with him.
Excellent. And you've got El Drama for the Group 1 Dubai Turf. Is he still angled for that one?
He is very much so. Yeah. He's we're planning to ship him at the end of this week, and he's scheduled to line up on Super Saturday in the Jebel Hatta Stakes, a Group 1 Jebel Hatta Stakes over 9 furlongs, which is a lovely prep race, I suppose, for the Dubai Turf. It comes exactly 3 weeks before the Dubai Turf, and should he acquit himself well in the Jebel Hatta, then there's every chance he'll be staying to take his chance in the Dubai Turf on Dubai World Cup night.
And he's a 5-year-old by Lope de Vega. What's he like, just in terms of personality, the way he trains, and how did he come to be with the stable?
Yeah, he's progressed nicely with racing. We purchased him as a yearling for his owner, Sheikh Mohammed Obeid Al Maktoum. And he won as a 2-year-old, his only start. He did well as a 3-year-old, winning the D Stakes at Chester, one of the Derby trials. Last year was a slow year for him. He had an injury in the spring, so he never raced until September. But he posted very good form without winning. He was second in the Joel Stakes, the Group 2 at Newmarket over 1 mile. Touch unlucky on that occasion. And then he ran 5th behind our other horse, Bayside Boy. He ran 5th in the QE2 at Ascot on Champions Day, where he just found the heavy ground a little bit against him. But both runs last year were to a very high level. And hopefully this year we can have a cleaner program with him. Hopefully he'll stay injury-free and he'll be able to really show us what he can do.
And the third is the profitable colt, Mitbahi. Last year he won a Group 3 in Newbury, as well as a listed class race at Sandown Park. Being ready for the Alcor Sprint, is that still on plan?
No, he won't make that, I'm afraid. He had a little setback, nothing major, but he had a little hiccup a few weeks ago. So he won't be prepared in time for this race. So we'll take the more conventional route into our European season with him. Most likely he'll be having his first start of the season in May, and hopefully he can be progressing to the caliber of sprinter who can be lining up in some of our Group 1 sprints throughout the course of our summer. But he's a very nice horse, and maybe he can have a good 4-year-old season in Europe, and maybe a horse we can line up for Dubai as a 5-year-old next year.
Excellent. And the last of the 4 you mentioned earlier, Elderov, Dubai colt, who has to his name already a Group 1 and a Group 2 Queen's Vase. He nominated for the Group 2 Dubai Gold Cup. Still on track for that one?
Yes, potentially. No formal decision has been made yet, whether that's where we'll start his season, but he's training nicely. He's on schedule to line up in that race if that's where we decide to go with him. I'll be chatting to connections over the next week or two, and I would say it's a possibility without being a concrete certainty that he'll line up. But he's a very nice horse. He progressed beautifully throughout his 3-year-old season, winning the Queen's Vase at Royal Ascot and winning the St. Leger at Doncaster. So he's a very talented performer. He looks like stamina is his biggest asset. It's likely we'll campaign him as a cup horse in our 2-mile races in Europe. And he'd be very deserving of his place in the Gold Cup at Meydan on Dubai World Cup night, should we decide to go there.
And as you said, very impressive. I've watched the replays of both those runs, and yeah, stamina is something looks like he has in buckets. So it'd be really good to see him in that. You mentioned that you need to talk to connections about if that is where he prepares his prep. What are the other options if that isn't the course that the connections want to go?
I think the other options are maybe just taking our time, letting warm into our European season, maybe taking a prep race in May. Of course, a race that we really want him to be in 110% condition for is for the Ascot Gold Cup at Royal Ascot in the middle of June, and it's about how we get there. And should we not decide to go to Meydan, then it's likely he could run in something like a Sagaro Stakes, which is a 2-mile group race at Ascot early in May, or possibly the Yorkshire Cup, which is a Group 2 over a mile and 6 furlongs at York in the middle of May. These would be the 2 races most likely, which should provide a nice springboard into Royal Ascot. There'd be 4 or 5 weeks in advance of a royal meeting. And if we decided not to go to Dubai with him, and it's likely he'd line up in one of these events.
And if he does not go to Dubai, would it be a case of just the one run in Midbar, taking the journey to Dubai for the our course?
El
Drama. Sorry,
El
for
Drama,
Dubai
exactly.
Turf.
Yeah. So I think we're looking at hopefully a solid contender in El Drama.
Yeah.
He's very much on schedule. He's due to run on Super Saturday, and Eldarov. We certainly haven't drawn a line through the prospects of him going. He could be joining El Drama on a big night, but sadly, Midbar he will not be this year.
Yeah. And how many horses are currently in the stable?
So we have here in Newmarket with us approximately 180 at the moment.
Yeah.
We have a few more than that on the books, but some of the young horses not necessarily in with us at the moment, and some of the horses on a particular rehab program, some of those coming back from injury, are not necessarily with us at the moment. But we have a large number under our roof currently, around about 180, and a strong team of horses, a great supporting team of owners. And a great team of staff, putting in the shifts, every day to hopefully put us in good shape, for the big season ahead of us.
And you said before that you've had a pleasure. You can't name exactly every horse that's done something for the success of your career and for your yard. Who are some right now to that 180 that you're really impressed with, and you're really, as you said, you're gearing up. You're keen to gear up for a new European season heading forward? Just a few names that could be real stars into that season.
Well, I think we've touched on some of those older horses already. The filly who's very light on racing experience but very talented is Amina. she's a 4-year-old now, and she ran sixth in the 1,000 guineas on only her third start as a 3-year-old last year. She had an injury setback there afterwards and wasn't seen again, but we'd still have aspirations that that filly can develop into a Group 1 performer this year. Of some of the younger horses, we'd have to be excited about the prospects of Sakir, who is very highly rated. He was very impressive in winning the Mill Reef Stakes, a Group 2 at Newbury last autumn. He likely would have gone off favourite for the Dewhurst Stakes, but had a little setback prior to that race, so didn't line up. But he would very much have a 2,000 guineas, or should I say, he would have the 2,000 guineas as his early season target. He looks full of talent, so he's obviously exciting. Another 2-year-old of last season to have taken out a Group 2 in the autumn was a horse called Sharon, and he looks very solid and progressive. So I think you could say that Sharon and Sakir look like two of our current crop of 3-year-olds who we'd have early season classic aspirations with.
Yeah. And having taken, we spoke for 21 Group 1s, including those St. Ledgers, wins, abroad in Dubai as well, in the Middle East. What are some races that you may have won, but you really would love to win again? Or some races that in the back of your head, you just have targets as a trainer who's always thinking forward, of that you would love to have a horse to compete and win the spoils in, either at home or abroad?
Yeah, it's probably a long list.
Yeah.
probably a long list. Group 1s are special anywhere at any time.
Yeah.
Classic races are that little bit extra. They're like the majors in golf and the Grand Slams in tennis. So yes, we've won 2 St. Ledgers, so we're on the classic board.
Yeah.
We'd love to develop our classic CV, and both for 2,000 guineas and 1,000 guineas. And the Oaks and the Derby, are high up on the list of goals. If I could nominate one race only, I think the Epsom Derby is a race that I'd love to have on the CV. Internationally, I think that ever increasing on a yearly basis, our industry is becoming more global. I think we have to look at our season not just as a European season now, but as a 12-month of the year international season. In Europe, the Arc de Triomphe is obviously a race which would be high up on anyone's wish list. And further afield, I'm very fond of Japan. Obviously, my wife Hanako is from Japan, and we have a lot of clients and a lot of friends from Japan. So to win any of their big races is very much high up on the wish list. A Japan Cup or a Mile Championship or a QE2 or one of their big autumn international races. And we went very close in Australia a few years ago in the McKinnon Stakes with a horse called Farage, who was beaten a neck and a neck into third, but had a wide passage throughout, coming from 15 of 15. So we feel like we'd like to get back to Australia and win one of their big races. And, you'd have to nominate the Melbourne Cup as another one of those iconic international races which you'd love on your CV. So we feel we've done quite well so far. We've certainly established ourselves and we've won some nice races, but there's a massive ambition and achievements that we've yet to fulfill. And that's what's so great about this game, is keeps you looking forward, keeps you working hard, and hopefully we've got a good team of horses, in the yard this year. Hopefully we can, have another good season, and this year and years to come, hopefully be in a position to win some of those races I've just mentioned.
That's it. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on Etihad Coder Connections, Roger. It's been really good.
No problem. Thanks so much for having me.
All good. Thanks so much.